I'm going to teach you how to gear up a character in the War Within Season 1, and to do so with an effort to gear ratio that will make the Mythic Raiders feel a little bit sick. First, you want to hit item level 580 and get coffer keys. We're going to use those coffer keys in delves later. Now, our first port of call is weekly caches. Those drop from major open world content. Now, the first two of those give you carved crests, valor stones, a restored coffer key, and some veteran gear that's item level 584. The next two will not have gear, and the final two will not have keys. Realistically, this just means doing a pass of the world content. So that means Farron's World Soul Quest, Spreading the Light in Hallowfall, Snuffling, and Awakening the Machine, which are both in the Ringing Deeps, the Theatre Troupe in Dorne, and the weekly Pact quest in Ashkahet, as well as the special assignment world quest that you see. Those are the ones that require doing other world quests to unlock. Then, on top of that, you'll want to do the world boss. They're pretty much a cakewalk, and they may give you a piece of item level 604 champion gear. And now that we're a few weeks on, you'll probably have some renown, and that's really handy. You can fill a few slots with item level 584 gear from the renown factions. Renown 7 with the Council of Dornegal and the Hallowfall Arathi gets you shoulders and chest, while rank 8 with Assembly of the Deeps gets you a helm. All that stuff's pretty handy. If you need a little bit more gear, you can just run some heroics, and from doing all of this, you'll get loads of withered crests. There are two ways you can use those crests. The first is to have an enchanter make for you an enchanted withered crest. Once you get one of those, you'll be able to craft a piece of item level 590 gear. Otherwise though, you're just going to be spending those crests on gear upgrades. With that, broadly you're ready, and if you want more details about this stage of gearing, you can check out the previous pre-season gearing video that we did. With that said though, let's talk about our season gearing, specifically early. Delve gearing is actually real simple, but you'll want to do it right. So each day, 4 bountiful delves will appear in your map. At the end of each of those delves, you'll find a special chest. Opening that with a coffer key will get you a piece of gear that is based on the tier of that delve. Now, the coffer keys are a limited resource. You'll usually get about 5 a week, so ideally, you'll want to spend that limited resource only on tier 8 delves, because a tier 8 bountiful delve is what will give you the best bit of gear. Now, to do that, you'll need to get access to those higher tier delves, and the fastest way to unlock those is to focus on the shorter delves, like Takrathan Abyss, Sinkhole, and Skittering Breach, and maybe skip some of the longer ones, like say the Fungal Folly or the Mycomancer's Cavern. And to unlock the next tier of delve, all you've got to do is just complete a delve within the allowed death counter, which is not that bad at all, and if you do happen to run out of lives, you can just use the macro that I've left down the description, and that will immediately take you out of the delve, and you can try again. Now, for a bit of a leg up in all of this, we've built a handy tool for you over on Bellular.games. The members article and accompanying free keybinding tool will basically make you a way stronger player. They'll be better for your performance than any single bit of gear, and that'll of course help you rise up those delves. We've had an incredible response to it so far, and by being a member, you of course get our content early, ad-free, along with our lore podcast, and you support the team. Okay, back to gearing, back to delves. Tier 8 will give you item level 603 gear at the end and 616 in the Great Vault. Tier 8s are actually doable at item level 580. And I know that might seem a bit crazy, but seriously, we were crushing out delves on an item level 582 Death Knights, so it will be doable for most people. But if that doesn't work for you, what you can do is just find a group with a tank and a healer, and you'll probably have a higher success rate. And failing that, tier 7 delves are almost as good as tier 8 delves. The gear is a little bit lower, but it's still on the same upgrade track. And that's the thing that matters the most, because you can just upgrade it. And that means that all the tier 8 delves are really doing is saving you some valor stones and crests on the upgrade. Quantities then: 4 bountiful delves spawn a day, and you get 4 keys a week from the caches, plus some more from fragments and renown. And to max out your Great Vault, you want to do a total of 8 tier 8 delves, which thankfully doesn't actually take that long, and Blizzard recently reduced it from 12 to 8. Let's talk about the other sources. So Mythic Plus is not actually open in week 1, but Mythic 0 is. Mythic 0 drops carved crests, valor stones, and eye level 593 gear that's on the veteran track, but far more importantly, it fills up your Great Vault with eye level 603 champion pieces for next week, so obviously if at all possible, you will want to do that so your vault is full. These are of course available on a daily lockout, and once again, they are very doable. Raid content then. In a nice change of pace actually, LFR Wing 1 is open right now in week 1. although more importantly for your gear, so too is normal and heroic. And the best advice here is really simple, just do as many attempts as you can at the highest level to fill up your Great Vault. There are loads of best in slot items you can find in the raid, and if past expansions have made raiding daunting for you and you didn't play Dragonflight, oh boy, Dragonflight changed things. Raids are definitely easier now, outside of Mythic difficulty, of course, and that means your chances of finding a normal mode pug, even on week 1, that can actually kill bosses and get you completion, well, that is so much higher than the past. Of course, if you manage to clear heroic in week 1, you will get the achievement that gets you a piece of heroic tier gear, which is pretty snazzy, but it's probably out of reach for most people just yet. Putting all that together then, you want to get all 3 slots in Delves, Raid, and Mythic 0 on the Great Vault full. Doing that will get you lots of eye level 600-ish gear right now, and it'll set you up to have a Great Vault that hopefully will have a bit of tier gear, or at least something pretty good, because you'll have 9 shots at the loot tables. And even if you're not at all interested in dungeons or raids, the addition of Delves basically means there is an entire other fairly large source of gear that literally did not exist last expansion. So if you want a strong character, but you don't want to do raids and dungeons, that is now something you can actually achieve in the game. Beyond these things, though, we've got to think about a few other little things. As an example, sparks, how to upgrade wisely, and then how we plan out our tier gear. When it comes to the Great Vault, our top priority is actually knowing what good looks like, because it can be really hard to compare things. One thing, of course, you can do is fire it all into raid bots and do a simulation, but if that's really less your speed, you can just check out your class discords or the Wowhead guide for your class. There you'll be able to learn your stat priorities, and you'll also see what the best in slot pieces of gear are. So be on the lookout for your best in slot gear. The next thing then is to put a priority on items that have got a gem slot, because gems, of course, have stats. That's really useful, and beyond that, you just want to care about item level and stats, plus using some common sense. If a gem slot is on a LFR item, that's probably not worth getting because you'll almost certainly upgrade past it. Now, sometimes when you open up the vault, you might see a big juicy looking thing with a high item level, but it may not be the right thing for you to pick. It could be that its stats basically suck, so if you go for it, you think you're getting a great item, but you're actually not. And then there's the fact that not all slots are equal. As an example, say chest and bracers. Those have got very, very different stats on them, so you'll generally want to go towards things that have got the most stats. And then finally, the upgrade system changes how we think about this. So you could get a fantastic bit of gear that is, say, rank 1, but is in the upgrade track that you want. If you found another item that was a way higher item level, but still on the same upgrade track, with worse stats, maybe not a socket or something like that, you may be tempted to go for that high item level piece. That's probably not the right move. You should go with the bit of gear that will be the most useful in the long term, and then plan to upgrade that piece of gear. Then there's the topic of timing the vault. I gotta be real, this one feels so goddamn unsatisfying, but it's better than just feeling screwed over by the gearing system. Basically, I would recommend that you do not pick up an item from the Great Vault immediately. I think you should do your major content in that week first, and then open your vault. And basically that's because the last thing you want is to pick up an item and then go do a delve and basically get a dupe or a better item in the same slot. So if you can make that Great Vault decision after you've got your other sources of gear, then you're ensuring that you're basically filling in the gaps in your gearing, and that way you can progress your character faster. Now, if nothing in the vault is appealing, don't actually worry, because you can pick up Algari tokens of merit, which doesn't feel amazing, but you can use them to purchase gem sockets, so whenever you do get best in slot gear, you can put a gem socket on it, which is really powerful. Okay, let's talk about crafting then. So after doing the World Soul quest for Freyrin, you'll have yourself a Spark of Omens. And you can use that Spark of Omens to get high item level crafted gear, and beyond that, you'll be earning Fractured Sparks, which basically you combine into a full Spark. Now, these Sparks are used in crafting orders to make epic gear, and if you just have a Spark, then you can craft gear up to item level 606. If you combine that Spark with an Enchanted Rune or Gilded Crest, then that will get you up to item level 619 and 636, which is pretty damn big, but it actually might make sense to do the more basic crafts right now. And the reason why is the Ruined one takes 45 crests to make, as well as materials that will make it be super expensive early on, because, well, Mythic Raiders exist, they want to get a lot of progress right now, so they will be paying a lot of money. So you could pay a very inflated price right now, or you could just get a piece of gear that will help you out right now, and then you can just recraft it with a Ruined or Gilded Crest whenever you acquire one of those later on at a higher item level. And the final point in crafting is, do you spend your sparks on special embellished items before raid tuning or not? Basically, embellishments can be real powerful. They have been real powerful in the past, but sometimes they're too good and they get nerfed. You ideally do not want to make your investment before Blizzard have done their initial raid tuning, because it'd be pretty shit to get an item and then just have it be nerf batted. So I recommend you at least wait until week 2 to get something with an embellishment. With that said, on to the next topic. I explained the basics of gear upgrading in our last guide. Today, let's just talk about strategy. Your main strategy is to exhaust all sources of gear before upgrading. Ideally, you'll want to do raid, do your dungeons, use all your keys in your delves, and open your vault before you even think about doing upgrades. That way, you won't be wasting any of your resources. So, once you've got all that together, you then want to focus on pushing up your strongest gear slots. Those typically will be weapons, trinkets, chests, and legs. The other part then is just making sure you reach the cap every week. That way you basically know you're going as fast as possible. Thankfully though, that's not complicated. So every bit of content that you do will give you crests that are relevant to that difficulty, and they'll give you some Valor Stones to basically fuel the upgrade process. As an example, tier 8 delves give you ruined crests, and that means you can upgrade the champion items that you get up to item level 619 without ever setting foot in a dungeon or a raid. It's just going to require you doing a lot of delves and getting lots of weekly vault pieces. So yes, do make sure that you hit those caps. Now you can also get more crests from hitting certain renown levels, and the good news here is that those actually ignore the weekly cap. So basically, keep farming out your renown reps, and the even better news with that is that whenever you start on a new character, well, you'll benefit from having lots of renown stuff unlocked, which could be handy for a few bits of starting gear. Next then, tier, which is actually fairly simple these days, and that's because of the catalyst. The catalyst can turn almost any upgradable item in the game into a tier piece. Now you get 1 charge of the catalyst per week, and that means that as long as you get upgradable gear, you'll have your 4-piece in a month, right? And that is the longest it will take you, assuming you get the actual raw items. The only way to get tier gear faster is just to get drops from the raid, and then also in the Great Vault. And the good news about the Vault is, any slot that you unlock has got a chance to drop as a piece of tier gear, which does mean that if you want tier as fast as possible, you should just raid as much as you can so you fill every vault slot. Now, you should hold off on using the catalyst until you have enough charges to complete it alongside any drops, because the worst feeling in the world would be, say, making yourself some tier gloves only to go and do a raid and have tier gloves drop. That would feel bad. I know, it's happened to me. Now, you might be wondering then, what's different? What's going to happen next week? Well, next week a lot of things kick off. Mythic Raid, but the big one for most people will be Mythic Plus Dungeons. Mythic Plus will basically replace the Mythic Zero step of this video with the Mythic Plus step, which funnily enough is just go do dungeons. There'll be a different world boss because those rotate weekly. The crest caps will be a little bit higher, but otherwise you're doing the same thing. Do the content for your choice of gear, vault slots, crests, Valor Stones, and then get to upgrading. A word of warning though, it can be extremely easy to be laser focused on item level and think that's the only thing that matters. No, other things matter. How good bits of gear are, all of that, but also how well are you actually utilizing the gear that's on your character? Because in so many cases, you find people with a high item level, they might actually look like they're doing really good DPS when you look at a DPS meter. But if you pull them into something like Warcraft logs, you'll actually see that while they're doing lots of DPS, they're actually not doing that much DPS at all, as compared to what the average player playing that class on that boss with that gear would actually be doing based on the data. And that means it's also important to gear up your own brain. The best way to do that is to hit up our key bindings guide. That's going to help you actually play the game better and get the most out of the gear that you do unlock, and you can watch it here.